This video, we're going to explore the way we build awareness, understanding, and appreciation for the different parts of our personality that have a rigid point of view about the challenging situations that we're facing in our lives. This skill is the basic epitome of everything we talk about in the integration of DBT and schema therapy. It involves a mindfulness approach that's grounded in the skills of distress tolerance, along with a connection to the parts of our personality that we're really trying to understand, appreciate, and ultimately accept unconditionally when we use the skills of emotion regulation. So today, let's have a conversation about the way we practice the skill of mindful journaling. Before we really get into what it means to practice the skill of mindful journaling, I want to be really clear that this is the type of exercise we want to use when we're in the emotion regulation aspect of the work we do in the program that we call Living the Life I Want to Live. So that being said, it's really important to understand that in order to attempt this exercise effectively, we need to have the distress tolerance skills of stop, accepts, and improve completed and actually being used as part of our daily activities. The primary reason for this need is when we begin to practice mindful journaling, we're going to get into the headspace of a particular part of our personality that's having a big and often really uncomfortable emotional experience. When practicing mindful journaling from this emotional perspective, it can activate a desire to escape. So it's essential we have the skills in place to disconnect from the emotion in a healthy and effective way once the exercise is completed, or if the exercise becomes too much for our system to handle. If you're someone who doesn't have these skills as an established part of your skill set, that's totally okay. Please take a step back, look at the videos and complete the worksheets attached to the website pages connected to these particular skills before you start to take this type of exercise on. I'll leave some links to the website pages for each of these skills in the description below. Building self-awareness is absolutely key to everything we do. Sometimes there are parts of our personality that have a really strong point of view on the particular situations or circumstances that we're facing. This point of view can be one that's so rigidly ingrained in a particular belief structure that it activates a behavioural response, which makes it difficult to understand what its purpose in our system might actually be. Nevertheless, if we want to practice unconditional self-acceptance from the dialectical perspective of no bad parts, then building appreciation for the purpose of a behaviour is an important thing for us to do. Appreciation and gratitude are also really important aspects of the RAAVEN exercise, which is essential for changing the internal narrative that's often driven by our own internal critics. And this debilitating point of view usually leads to a lack of acceptance for our own parts. For example, maybe there's a part of your personality that floods your system with an overwhelming sense of anger or even rage, one that takes over your actions and brings you to a place that completely compromises your true, authentic values and beliefs. These actions leave you filled with a sense of guilt and shame once this automatic response has died down and the part has essentially left your system. Or maybe there's a part of you that ramps up the feelings of anxiety within your personality whenever you feel that there's a need to fix someone else's problems or be responsible for someone else's feelings. This subconscious responsibility takes you to a level of fear that when you examine what you did once the situation's played out and you behaved in the same old way, really doesn't match what was actually happening in that particular moment of time. Understanding why we do what we do when we're in a state of distress means getting to know the parts of our personality that are reacting to the emotional experience that's generated by the dominant schema in our system. And this means getting curious from a compassionate point of view. Remember, before you start your mindful journal, please have your list of accepts ready to go. The basic concept of this skill is to have a list of healthy distractions, things that we can do to get out of a particular emotional experience, written out and at our disposal, so we don't have to think about what to do, we can just pick something and do it. If you know what emotion you're about to step into, you may even know what to pick from your accept skill already, so have this response ready to go. And first, let's get curious. The practice of mindful journaling is a mindfulness exercise. We need to isolate a particular part and focus our attention on this part and this part alone. It means getting into the headspace of this particular part, building an understanding for why it does what it does. We can do this by using certain aspects of the distress tolerance skill called improve. In this skill, I stands for imagery work, or simply put, imagination. So when we want to practice mindful journaling, find a quiet area to sit, have a pen and paper with you ready to go, and a space where you can write completely at your disposal. If you feel comfortable to do so, close your eyes and allow yourself to think of a time in the recent past when this particular part of your personality has been activated within your personality system. Picture yourself in that time. Notice what was happening all around you. Pay attention to the part's emotional experience as it starts to react within your system. Stay with this reaction as its story begins to play out in your mind. And when you can hear this story and you're listening to its perspective, open your eyes, pick up your pen and write out what this part is telling you. Let it all out. Don't try to edit it. Just let the pen flow. Grammar and punctuation are not important. It doesn't have to be to a certain standard. It doesn't have to sound a certain way. Just get it all out. Notice if there's a part of you that tries to change the subject or to shut down the story or justify a different point of view. When you do notice this, don't follow this particular train of thought. Just notice it and bring your attention back to the part that you're working with. Let the emotional experience play out in the words you're putting down on the paper in front of you. Then, when you think you're done, stop, take a deep breath and ask the question, is there any more? If there is, let it flow. Don't stop to check things. Just let the part express its point of view completely. Then when you think it's all done and you're sure it's all done, put the pen down, take some slow deep breaths, thank this part for sharing its story, then get up and go do that thing from your accept skill as a healthy way to distract from the emotional experience that you just exposed yourself to. This is an absolutely key part of the process as it demonstrates to the part that we do have a healthy response to these difficult emotional experiences. Remember, don't stop to take a look at the journal. You may feel a need to change what this part has wrote. Just leave it alone until a later point in time. And next, we'll bring a wise mind perspective to this part's point of view, one that's filled with self-energy, compassion, and acceptance. Compassionate curiosity is such an important concept to establish in our system. It means spending time with parts of our personality away from the judgment of our own internal critics, and this is an extremely challenging thing to do for anyone new to this type of work. Our personality is multiplistic and dialectical at its core. We are made up of multiple parts, all of which can exist at the same time with many different points of view on any single situation. Whatever part of our personality is dominant in our system takes over the wheel of our metaphorical bus and drives us in the direction that it wants to go. Sometimes this direction is completely in line with living the life we want to live, and sometimes it's not. So when it's not, this is usually, but not always, because our system is in a state of distress, often one that's tied to our unmet childhood needs, and the necessity to get that need met right now with a particular behavioural response is one that just can't be ignored. It's this rigid belief that we have to respond in a very specific way that ultimately creates the problem, and it can be the case that we just can't appreciate exactly why this part is doing what it always does. If we hold a particular judgment for this part and its behaviour, first thing we need to do is set this judgment aside. In this work, our definition of compassion is to set aside our ineffective judgments so we can be what we need to be in this particular moment in time. Sometimes we can be what we need to be for somebody else, or sometimes we can be what we need to be for the part of our personality that we're currently trying to work with. When we add curiosity to this non-judgmental point of view, we are in a place of wise mind, one that's filled with self-energy, guided by the light of our true, authentic values and beliefs. So when the time is right, go back to that quiet area and sit once again. Have the journal that was previously written right in front of you. Walk yourself into the space of wise mind. I personally often do this through the use of the safe place exercise, as this creates an internal space that's filled with compassion. It feels like a secure place for all of my parts to be. Once there, open your mind and read the journal to see what it is that this part has been trying to tell you. Notice its story. validate its point of view, empathize with why it feels the way that it does, and appreciate its purpose within your personality system. For me, when I notice a point of empathy, a place of understanding for this particular part, I'll often just write it down, documenting how I understand why the part does what it does. If needed, I even say it out loud, providing a verbal affirmation for why the part has this particular point of view. When we've completed the reading of this part's perspective and documented the wise mind affirmation of its point of view, it's important to practice the skill we call paying attention to positive events. Bring appreciation and gratitude for the action that you've taken. Recognize all the different parts of you that were involved in this process and acknowledge these parts for what they've done. This is how we build motivation to do more in the future. It is so important to understand that mindful journaling is a skill that is extremely difficult to complete for many people, particularly if our system doesn't know how to handle the emotion that we're trying to understand. If the distress tolerance skills are not in place, if our system lacks the level of trust that's needed because we haven't done the mindfulness work to make this connection, basically our system pushes back and we go into a space of emotional distress that we simply cannot complete the exercise. If this happens, it's completely okay. It doesn't mean that we're destined to fail. It does mean we have to focus our attention on using the distress tolerance skills again, practicing them on a regular basis, building them into our daily routines. Use the one mindfulness exercises in our routine multiple times a day. Work on getting to a place where our system starts to trust that we do have the skills to handle the emotion we're trying to work with. Then go back and try to complete this exercise once again to see where we're at. All of these skills lead to living the life we want to live and being the person we want to be. So if this has piqued your interest and you want to know more, come join the live online meetings that I facilitate each week for free on Zoom. I'll leave some links to these meetings in the description below. As always, if you like the content of this video, please subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and turn on the notifications to get all the latest from me and the Liberation Place. I hope this video gave you some insight for the mindful journaling exercise and how it can help you to build an understanding for why parts do what they do. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Take care, be safe and be well.